It's time for the Buffalo Plus podcast.
Allen again rolls on the move, lets it fly. Oh, Diggs! Oh, what a catch!
All right, welcome back to the Buffalo Plus podcast presented by Connors and Ferris, Mike Catalana, Dan Fates. I am Jenna Cottrell. We're going to talk all about the Bills moves that they've made, how hard that is to say, also who they missed out on as Tremaine Edmunds signing with the Bears, and how the AFC East is going to look quite different. So we'll all talk about it. Before we do, please be sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to the Buffalo Plus channel if you enjoy our content.
Just let it go. Go ahead. Say it.
Out of the way.
I don't mean to break my arm patting myself on the back, but also before this, I've already gloated once, but Mike had Wi-Fi issues, so we're doing this a second time. It's even more
don't
fun
act like you. Yeah,
it's even more fun gloating a second time. Yeah, I was right. I said, and to be fair, I was trying to go back to podcasts and vlogs that we did during training camp where I said Tremaine Edmunds was gone. That I said, I think the Bills hope that he plays so well that he prices them out of their pocket and makes it an easier decision, because it's also better for them to be a Super Bowl contender if their linebacker plays well. And so I've been right for a year now. It's been a decent year, minus the oil change for Dan, because I knew, let's just say it, Dan was right. That might be the title of this pod.
What do you mean that might be? You already made the Canva saying Dan was right. You already sent
that was
it
just
to us.
That was just for us. That was just for us.
Mike, you and Dan had a coffee bet, and I need to read this comment because Demo put on Twitter, whatever coffee you get, Dan Fades, ... please make it decaf. I love that. Shout out Demo because that's hilarious. All right, Dan. Yeah, you were right. Now, I will say, Mike, I feel like we saw this coming after the Matt Milano extension a couple days ago, right?
I didn't know how much difference that made. I think there was a number they wanted to keep Edmunds at. They obviously like Edmunds, and Chicago paid him a ton of money. I mean, Ryan Poles, I think, is going to do a good job. Hey, Ryan, that's a lot of money to spend on Tremaine Edmunds, and he's a good player. What we know about Tremaine is he's a good player, and if fans of the Bears are waiting for him to come in with 10 sacks and 3 picks, that's not the guy they're getting, but they're getting a good football player that I think the Bills would have liked to have kept. But Dan's right about this. Tremaine, based on his time in the league and his age and his ability to play the position well, he priced himself high and he got paid. That's great for him. I think the Bills had a number they would have been comfortable with. I think they probably approached Tremaine on that number, and he rightfully said, I'm going to test the market. He tested it, and he won. He won with the market. That's a lot of money, $50 million guaranteed. Great for him. He goes to the Bears. They're a rebuilding team, and the Bills can now rightfully take that money and spend it on offense.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that I think we talked about it the last video that we posted, was that, like, everybody being like, well, you can't let Tremaine Edmunds go. You can't let him go. He is not irreplaceable. And I mean that in the sense of Tremaine was a good player for the Bills. And at times he was really good. And I get the age, even though if you guys are still aware that he's young, he and Rappaport also wanted to point that out when he broke the news that he's still young. I think that if the Bears want to use him in a different way, that's fine. But this thought that, that Tremaine was this guy that you could never let go, I just didn't see it. I think we're starting to look at his career and his time in Buffalo with more rose-colored sunglasses, that like, he was, a Pro Bowler. It's like, woo. It's like, we went into this training camp being like, can he catch a ball when it is thrown at both of his hands? And we were like, can it be taught? And we even had Brandon Beane saying he lacks some instincts, that he just doesn't have that.
I got to take a time out here for a second. He just got paid $72 million. The guy's a good football player. I think it's prioritizing positions. I'm saying it's like, he can catch the football, but that's not, I mean, honestly, and I don't think the Bears are really going to change who he is. I mean, I think they're going to hope that he develops and gets better, but they're paying him a lot of money for the guy he's been, and they think he's going to be for them. But the Bears are different. They got a quarterback on a rookie deal. They're trying to rebuild the whole thing. They're using draft picks. They got money to spend. And so, great. I think the Bills had to prioritize, and there is a budget of how much you're willing to spend because you want to spend it somewhere else. And Jenna, they're going to need to spend it somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly that. I feel like I think Dan, like going into this season, it was like, yeah, there's no way that the Bills are going to re-sign Tremaine. But then to see the way he did develop this season, and I thought it was one of those situations where the Bills would have liked to have brought him back. But when you look at the optics of the situation coming off of his best season, only being 24 years old, being a guy that is a former first round pick, and the fact that he was a Pro Bowler, I think that made him so attractive to other teams. And the Bills just were priced out. I mean, Tremaine Edmunds, I think, is a really great football player. I think the Bills wanted to make him the cornerstone of the team. But at the same point, they are not going to pay $18 million a year for Tremaine Edmunds. They're not. They didn't. The Bears are going to. So
Yeah.
I think just to paint him as a guy that's like, I think the Bills would have liked to have kept him. If I'm Sean McDermott too, also like taking over the defense essentially this season, being the play caller for the defense, that's one more position group that Brandon Beane has to assess this offseason, and we can talk about which direction they want to go in. But at the same point, I didn't think it was abundantly obvious that the Bills weren't going to re-sign Tremaine. But then when we got closer to the start of free agency, then with them adding an extension to Matt Milano, it became obvious of, okay, yeah, it seems like to me they're shoring up their linebacking core with Milano because they know that they're not going to bring back Edmunds.
Now, Dan's other prediction may come true, and I want to know what he thinks of it now. He said Terrell Bernard's going to be the starting linebacker.
That was
How you feeling about
take.
that?
It may be true, and I don't know if I like it. Like we've talked about it before here, just the fact of whether it's a bridge linebacker, whether it's a bigger, more physical linebacker because you have Milano. But we were talking about it just before we came on here that maybe Milano's role changes a little bit. You're not going to be paying him $14 million a year at the back half of his contract and things like that. But I want to get to Jen's point, a few things. We've gone through enough free agencies where we kind of get a little bit of a picture of what Brandon Beane does, especially as he talks about draft, developing, and re-sign. And that was, to me, the biggest telltale sign was the fact of they didn't get a deal done before the season. And even with Josh, and I know it's a deal, I will say the same thing right now on March 13th that I said about Tremaine Edmunds. The fact that there's not a deal done with Ed Oliver right now speaks volumes. It's the same way a deal didn't get done with Jordan Poyer. Like, there are times when they take a calculated risk and they would like a deal, like a team-friendly deal, but very rarely do those happen in the NFL. So the fact that they didn't sign him heading into the season, I thought was, as I said before, if he plays terrible, perfect, we're moving on. If he plays great, that means the team will be good, and he'll probably price this out anyway. So what does it matter? So where you say the Bills, where Tremaine priced himself out, I think it's almost the Bills took that calculated risk and put themselves, were a factor in why he got priced so high. Like, if they would have wanted him, they could have signed him like the last 338 days, and they didn't get a deal done. Like, you have to look at this big picture, and I understand.
Well, you also don't know what the other side of that was. They probably had a cap
100%.
of the amount of money that they were going to give Tremaine. And
100%.
Tremaine was like, look, I am 24 years old. This is my X season. I am a former first round pick.
Absolutely.
I am a guy that has been to a Pro Bowl. Like, just because a deal didn't get done doesn't mean that the Bills didn't try to do that.
I didn't say they didn't try. I'm saying is that it spoke volumes.
Said they had
that they
364 more days to
correct because they let it linger for this long.
But you don't know if they let it linger. You don't know if they came to him and tried to sign him earlier. You don't know that. Mike, is that wrong? Like, what do you?
No, it's both of you guys are right. I mean, there's, these things are normally not so black and white. Like, here's your deal, take it or whatever. They gave him the 5th-year option. He's here playing. He was, Jenna, like we've talked about, he was the guy right along with Allen. And, you have, obviously, Josh Allen's the cornerstone of the franchise. And they thought Edmunds, because you're going to lose Poyer. They thought Edmunds could be that guy. Well, things change in the NFL. And I would say this. whoever you're bringing in to play that other spot, whether you're doing it with the second-year guy Bernard or you're bringing in a stopgap guy for a year or so, you're saving a lot of money at that position going forward. And they're going to spend that money on the offense. So I think there was a point where there's only so much, and maybe it's by linebacker, maybe it's by position, maybe it's offense and defense, that they're like, this game is so different as it keeps getting more and more, where teams are saying, we like defense, but man, we need a few stops and we got to score some points. That's the league. And I want to see him say, okay, we saved this cash on Tremaine. We're not going to be as good at linebacker, likely, right? In whatever way, but we're going to score more points, and that offense is going to be better, and our best player is quarterback. So let's go spend it on somebody that can help the quarterback.
Yeah, I think that's fair too. I mean, look, before the season started, if you told me the Bills didn't re-sign Tremaine, I would not be shocked. I think the way he played this past season and looking at where they were going, the expectations, and then again with Leslie Frazier stepping away, it did. I was like, okay, I could see why they would want to add or continue that stability, but I also get why they didn't want to pay him $18 million a year. I don't think that's ridiculous.
And by the way, I'm just going to throw this out there. So Leslie steps away. This team's plan appeared to be only so high on Tremaine, probably didn't look great, them re-signing him, and Poyer gone. It might have impacted Leslie's thoughts on coming back too.
Maybe that is the case.
That's big losses in terms of guys you count on.
Sure.
It's going to be, this defense is going to be very different in the case this year. So
that's a really, I never thought about that, Mike.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking in big picture, like,
yeah,
they didn't just decide yesterday that they had a number. We don't ever know. So, but it still could have worked out. Like, it still eventually could have worked out, but there might have been that thought that, hey, this is where we're headed. This is what we're going to do. Yeah. And it might have impacted what they're deciding to do on defense.
And that also goes to the point that I was talking about, Janet, like this whole, it's not just, you can't just pay a player based off one season or even one game. Like that's what Bean is always talking about. And so you kind of know the limitations that Tremaine Edmunds has. And I think that was part of where you're right. I don't know that they didn't come to him and offer him $15 million during the season or $15 million before the season. But it seems like when those deals get done, there's a mutual interest that like, hey, I want to stay in Buffalo. This is a good fit. And I look at this with Ed Oliver going into the season. I look at this with Gabe Davis. Now, again, I'll say the same thing. They hope Ed Oliver plays well. But if he plays so well that he prices them out, okay.
Yeah. Like, one other thing I wanted to add to this before we move to the other things they did is Edmunds and his side also knew the Bills were not in a position to put the franchise tag on anybody.
Yeah.
Based on where they were. So that actually helps certainly a lot because you don't have that added element of they can tag them and see what happens.
Over your head. Yeah.
So he knew that we get to this day, March 13th, I can talk to anybody. And he did. And he got signed. So I wish him well. I think he's a good guy. I think he was a good Buffalo Bill. But go get offense and score 35
I'm not
a game.
I'm not sitting here trashing him saying he's not worth the money or that he's not a good player. It's
you literally said you didn't know if he could catch if the ball was thrown at his two hands.
Well,
like, here's my thing. I actually agree with you in some regard.
Prove me wrong. Spot the lie.
Stop. Do you hear yourself sometimes? No, my thing is too, like, I get you're gonna get, but here's where I could see Brandon Beane making a thing. You're gonna get paid for what you do ahead. And like, he's spent 5 years in the system. He is, and I know we joke about this, but he is 24 years old.
Yeah. And it fits their mold, Jenna.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, they redid Josh's, they gave Josh a deal. They gave Dion a deal. They gave Trey White a deal. They gave Matt Milano a deal. Like,
Dawson
their
Knox.
top guys, they've brought back. This is off-brand for the Bills. Would you agree?
But all of those deals got done before the wire. like Bean
Yes,
isn't.
I'm saying is yes.
So
Yeah.
that was where I read the tea leaves, where I
But
said,
it's also they're
man.
also a different team now because now they're paying Josh. Now they're paying Trey.
Yeah.
Now they're paying these guys. So the money is a little tighter in that way. I mean, we joke about the salary cap not being real, but there is a point where there's only so much teams are going to spend.
Yes.
And hey, they'll move on. They get another guy to play linebacker.
Correct.
They will.
Score more points.
Yeah, Dan will be out there.
I'm just saying, Tremaine is not irreplaceable. A very good player, played some, at times, very high-level football. But his safety against Cleveland is the most memorable play that we can remember off the top of our heads.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Should we go? Do we want to talk about replacement then?
Well, Terrell Bernard, look, he's got an all-off season, but he didn't even show. He really barely played in the defense. Played some special teams, made a couple of plays. Didn't he have a fumble return in the preseason?
I can't remember.
Yes, like 75-yarder. Yeah, 75-yarder. First time, first series.
They know he's got to get bigger, stronger, all those things. You know, some guys come in that way. He
looks like a safety, honestly.
Well, that role, though, when you talk about moving Milano, he's physically more like Milano.
Yep.
And Milano's a heck of a player. So, my guess is they go get a veteran and then they see what they have, with Bernard this year.
Yeah.
You got to bring in another veteran or two.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know if like that Dotson played when Tremaine was out, whether it's Dotson and a mixture of again, another veteran out there on a 2 or 3 year deal where the last 2 or 3 years of the deal are imaginary and they're fake.
Could be 1 year deal guys too. I'm telling you, in this league, especially at linebacker.
Right, but 3 years might spread out the cap hit.
And also keep this in mind. There's so many ways to pick up players. I mean, here we are. This is day one of the legal tampering part. And I mean, players get signed all the time. Teams make draft picks, and then all of a sudden a veteran is expendable, and then he's gone before June 1st or right after June 1st. So I would just say these are the tougher decisions. This is when good football players go out the door. Jordan Poyer is likely to go next.
Yeah.
And Tremaine Edmunds is gone. And, you've got to replace those guys.
Yeah, no, that's true. The Bills made some other moves as well. They signed offensive lineman Connor McGovern.
There's two of them.
There's two of them, but the one that played for the Cowboys. I think that's a smart move in terms of we talked about just the need for beefing up the offensive line, and I don't think Roger Saffold is back. And
Pro Bowl Roger Saffold. Pro Bowl
alternate.
By the way,
alternate.
The two guys with the same name is funny. I see this guy as I see versatility, and sometimes versatility worries me a little bit.
Yeah, it's totally fair.
Right? Because you know what I mean? Like Dion's not versatile. He's your left tackle. Now, and again, he signed here, and I hope the guy can play. And we'll see. He certainly showed flashes of that with the Cowboys, but they've seen something in him. But I want to see. I want more coming in. I want another free agent. I want a draft pick. Like I want offensive linemen to help Josh Allen out.
I don't think it's dressed the offensive line.
Correct. I got a text from a buddy right away and said, is McGovern a starter or what are we looking at? Is this a depth piece? And I said, I don't know. And he goes, that's not very convincing. And I said,
that might be telling though.
Here's the thing. Not an all 22 guy. I found some clips on the internet. He kind of reminded me of like Tommy Doyle, where he can be the sixth offensive lineman. He goes, so he's like Bobby Hart. And I was like, I don't know, Jim. But what I liked about this guy is that, again, Mike makes a great point. We talk about it. It's like the utility infielder on a baseball team. You're really good at you're pretty good at all the positions, but you're not really good enough to be the number one at any of the positions.
Right.
I think that's where McGovern is a little bit. I like his versatility. Now it comes down to, can he be coached and utilized to be that?
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Again, yeah, I think they're doing a good job creating competition, getting guys in. I mean, they signed Ike Bucker back. Like there's going to be a lot of competition. But at the same point, I think there's still a lot more to be done in terms of the position group and just going forward.
And there's nothing I was looking at, and somebody said it on NFL Network, and I can't remember who it was, and I thought it was very telling, because to me it hit home with the Bills. So the guy said that it's not about the best 53-man roster. It's about the right 53-man roster that works for a team and a culture and the coaching staff. And I thought that was very telling, because I think this team has wanted to be more physical. I don't know if they've had the roster to be that physical style of team. And so where we looked at last year and we said, man, this 53-man roster is the best. It's the most talented. Maybe it wasn't right for this coaching staff. Maybe it won't still be right for the coaching staff. I think we still have some questions about my guy, Ken Dorsey. But I will say that, like, there are some things that it's not always the big name tickets. And Mike was 100% right. He thought that when free agency started, there'd be crickets, and there would be this little sense of panic of like, oh my gosh, the Bills aren't doing anything. And I think Mike's hit it right on the head.
Yeah, you sit back a little bit. I did not see them as being first day spenders.
No.
You know, and it's funny when your team makes that move, a lot of people are excited, and they should be. And then you sit back and go, wow, we're paying a lot of money for Tremaine Edmunds or McGlinchey, the tackle, who had like half of a good year. You know what I mean? Like, guys got paid. Javon Hargrave was awesome for the Eagles. He got a ton of money from the 49ers, and that's great. But that's teams making big decisions on guys to give them huge money. And, you know, it's left tackles and D linemen. That's where you're supposed to spend the money. But the Bills are now, Bean's now at least a little freed up. They got a little more cap space than they had before, because, you know, Tremaine Edmunds is going to be off the books.
Yeah, so the Bills re-signing Sam Martin as well as Tyler Manikevich, some special teams. And then real quick, just Aaron Rodgers. It's not official yet, but the just in terms of him joining the Jets.
Well, it hasn't happened yet, and you skip by Case Keenum leaving.
Oh yeah,
the Bills need a,
yes,
so the
yes.
Bills need a backup. What about Aaron Rodgers coming into Buffalo? I mean, why not?
Of course.
Let's get that started. You know, God,
You're
right.
He loves the attention.
Oh my God.
I feel bad for him. He hates all this attention and everybody talking about him. All right, I got to run. You guys finish up. I got a screaming baby upstairs and a sick wife. So you guys finish up. I will post this later, guys,
Hey, Dan,
just so you know.
I'm going to get your coffee, fill it with ice, and leave it on your desk. It should be nice and watered down when you get it tomorrow.
All right. All right, vacation, Mike. I appreciate it.
Oh, my gosh.
Jenna, what are we going to do with him?
I don't know.
Oh my God. And if Bernard plays and is a star linebacker, he's going to take credit for that too.
My stomach. Again, we were talking in the sports office, a little bit inside baseball. Mike and I were like, now I'm just pot committed to them re-signing Tremaine because
because we wanted Dan to be wrong.
Right. I don't even know if it's the best move for the team, but screw it. I just don't want Dan to be right.
So Dan's gone up to see his baby, his little girl, Shane. And when Shane is crying, does he say, Shane, Dan was right?
I mean, he was downright disrespectful to Tremaine Edmunds.
Yeah. I mean, I get what he's saying. You know, he's trying to say, is there another love? Tremaine Edmunds is a good football player, and the Bills are going to miss him. The idea is, can you make up for the money you spend, align it somewhere else, put it in another position, get good play at a linebacker position, change some of your scheme around, like whatever they need to do, you know, which would be big, but man, God.
Oh, I know. All right, wait, let's quickly touch on the Case Keenum, because I did forget to mention that. Him going to the Texans. I mean, we talked about Sam Darnold possibly being a backup. Obviously, he's going to the 49ers. Like, what do you think the Bills do in terms of, do they leave Matt Barkley? Do they grab another guy? What do you expect?
They kept Barkley in that spot before. I think they like him as that like third guy.
I think they do too.
I want a guy who can step in and play. I do not want a rookie. I don't want a young guy who hasn't played. My thought on the backup quarterback is, can he come in for a quarter, a game? That's the one
Yeah.
thing about Case Keenum, and I'm not blaming Case Keenum. I would have liked, I said this to you before, I would have liked to have seen when Josh hurt that elbow,
Mhm.
maybe he sat for a game or two,
Yeah.
got healthier faster because you had confidence that Keenum could come in. And that's not all on Keenum.
No.
That's on this offense, which was so Josh dependent that you almost felt like you couldn't sit him down.
Yeah.
But it's not about replacing Josh Allen. Look, if Josh is playing, you got a shot. If Josh was out for more than a little bit, I mean, come on, he's Josh Allen. But
Yeah.
I mean, you even saw with the Chiefs in the playoff game against Jacksonville, Mahomes went
Chad
out.
Henne. Yeah.
He let him down the field and he scored a touchdown. I mean, he almost threw a terrible pick, but he did lead him down there. That's what you need. Let us survive and go. So I want a guy like that. I don't know who it'll be, but I want somebody that's played in the league. I do not want the backup to be a kid. I don't want it to be some 6th round draft pick. I honestly, I'd probably rather have Matt Barkley as the 2 than a kid who has never played. And I don't see any need to get a young quarterback in. I think Barkley's on your practice squad and a veteran is your backup. So
yeah, I agree. I think you can't go kid. You go Matt Barkley if kind of
can they get Mitchell Trubisky back? I think he might be available. I don't know.
Seriously.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back then to what we were talking about Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
The darkness retreat. Some of that stuff I just
if you're the Jets though, you are, I mean, think about being a Jets fan, right? You've had these moments like when, very small when Rex was there, before that when Parcells was there, but you've been bad. That's a heck of a roster with no quarterback play last year. And by the way, a brief aside, love the Mike White signing for the Dolphins.
Yeah,
love it for them. Like him as a backup. He can play, and look at who he's got on the outside down there if he has to play.
Excuse me.
I don't know. Would you but Rodgers, I mean, the Jets they were playing Flacco. I mean,
Flacco.
I mean, seriously, and Wilson's been terrible. You're talking about Aaron Rodgers with all his nuttiness. They could do it.
I mean, yeah, they have a talented offense. You're getting Breece Hall back. You have Garrett Wilson, who's fantastic. The defense is really good. It's just, I feel like every year we talk about the teams around the Bills getting better in the division, and like it's the case.
On.
It is. And like the Bills always say, you got to start with the division, got to win the division. It's like, yeah, because the division is getting a lot tougher. The Bills split with the Dolphins this year. They split with the Jets this year. Like these are real implications for what can happen in the postseason, and they're getting better. How are you?
Yeah. How about they played 5 games against the Jets and the Dolphins, and they were all basically dogfights, every one of them. That second Jets game, they ended up winning, but that was tight the whole way through. And the Dolphins in that case, the Patriots, it's funny to me right now, we'll see what ends up happening. The Patriots are the clear 4th team, especially if Rodgers goes to the Jets. Just talent-wise, quarterback-wise, everything. They're the last place team. We'll see what they end up doing, but they're the 4th team. So
I will say long term, I'm happy the Jets didn't get Lamar. But obviously, still having Aaron Rodgers, Hall of Fame quarterback, is something to contend with. I'm curious to see how it all go down, though, with the media and with Rodgers and just.
But I think that team is going to embrace Rodgers.
I do too. Young guys. I think the team will.
Sauce loves him. He knows he's going to go in there as the conquering hero, and he'll unquestioned just go play. He's not going to worry about Garrett or Zach Wilson. Wilson. Yeah. So they can date the same women. I'm sorry.
That was funny. Okay. Anything else? I'm trying to think.
No, I mean, I was checking stuff. Dan always thinks I'm not paying attention to him, but I was just checking to see if anything had updated. Usually even the GMs get a little bit of a break here. to
Although
see if
it's being
anybody
after
else.
dark. We're recording this at like 7 o'clock, a little after 7.
Yeah. But we'll see. Don't panic. Don't
I feel like
panic.
it's like Bills fans though. It's like I said to you, it's like you're at a school dance and everyone's getting picked but you.
Has that
You're
happened
like,
to you, Jenna?
yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's happened to everyone.
Yeah. Okay.
You know how tall I am? You know these it's Chewbacca on the dance floor.
Yeah.
No.
All these 7th graders looking up, tall girl.
I vividly remember being in 5th grade and coming home crying to my mom, and she was like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "Will their boys ever be taller than me?" She's like, "You gotta give it time."
Yeah.
That's
Well, it
that's how
happens.
it is. All right. For Mike, who is here, Dan, who is not here, I'm Jenna. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll have plenty more updates as the Bills are going to be hopefully doing a bunch in free agency. And yeah, we always appreciate everyone stopping by and listening. And please, again, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.